If you're a digital artist that have been considering VR sculpting, or you have tried before and you didn't really like it at first, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the positives and negatives of VR sculpting so you can decide for yourself if this is for you or not. And then I'm gonna touch it on what might be the best app for you, equipment requirements, and a couple ergonomic tips so you can enjoy longer sessions without any pain. I'm Celso from Guará.ca and I have been modeling and sculpting for about 20 years. And the first time I experimented with VR was about 10 years ago. I actually enjoyed playing with it, but I couldn't get any good results, so I didn't touch it for another 3 or 4 years. And during this time, the tools got better, the apps got a lot better, the headsets don't need external tracking anymore. And that combined with a Black Friday sale and another friend that was interested in hyping me up, we both ended up getting headsets. And I've been playing with it ever since. But at first was just that, just playing. I couldn't get any usable results out of it. But it was interesting enough, the novelty kept me hooked to the point where I'm still using today. And now most of my sculptures start in VR, and then I send to Zbrush or Blender or whatever. So let's start with some positives. The first one goes great with my ADHD brain, and it's the novelty aspect of it. I've been sculpting for about 20 years, so I go over the same old steps. And actually sculpting in VR changed how I sculpt in Zbrush as well. But still, even though I've been using it for a while, it feels new and intuitive and exciting, as sculpting in a tablet feels like I've been doing this forever and it feels like work. And sometimes it's hard for me to get interested in at least in starting. And the starting point now for me is painful when I have to start something with Z spheres or just a sphere. But when I start in VR, I see so much potential. Immersion is a huge part of it. I'm fully isolated with the headset. I'm in the environment with the sculpture, and it's a lot harder for me to get distracted. Not even mentioning, it creates a layer of removal from my phone and from anything going on my computer. Of course, I can have a virtual screen there still. I try not to, but if I'm doing any other task, I set a timer for me to try to focus during that time. When I'm in VR, I have to set the timer for me to remember to get out of it at some point. Now, speed might be a little bit controversial because, like anything, when you start, you're going to be slow at it. And I might still be faster in ZBrush if you go by the minute, spend actually moving the pen. But that's where immersion comes in, right? Because I'm so focused, I'm so hooked with less distractions that I end up being faster overall, even knowing I'm slower by the minute, if that makes sense. And that brings me to the biggest positive of the whole VR thing and the reason why we want to try it in the first place. The three-dimensionality of it, being inside the 3D space with your sculpture instead of having to translate your 3D thoughts to a 2D screen to a 3D model. So it's a one-to-one. It takes some getting used to it. The Z aspect, if you think of Z as depth, right? The depth, and especially when you start drawing in VR, like Quill or even Freebird XR with Blender, if you're drawing in VR, the third dimension is a little bit of a challenge at first, but you get used to it, and that's what's gonna speed up the whole process, because in ZBrush, for example, you're pushing and pulling on a single aspect, and who never spent too long on a profile, on a front view, and when you rotate to the profile, the face is flat, or you look from the top and the face is flat because you do front and side, and forget about the 3/4 a little bit. That barely happens in VR. If anything, my problem with VR is having a little bit of a slanted models because I make it around me kind of thing, but that is an easy fix, you know, like you get a big move brush and you just push the middle a little bit and it's fixed. Being there with your model on a digital space is amazing. It's the going from having it on your hands when you're looking at the whole silhouette and having it gigantic in front of you if you're working on a detail like an eye or something. It's another level. It brings me joy. Now for the downsides. Equipment is one. You need to buy extra shit. A VR headset at least. If you are a 3D artist already, you probably already have a pretty capable computer. And if your computer is a bit older, you might have to upgrade your graphics card or some extra parts. So the additional cost of getting started is a bit of a downside for me. Setup is a bit of a negative for me because I know how immersed I'm gonna be when I start, so that creates a barrier for me to get started. I end up spending extra time on social media or extra time watching other things and procrastinating getting started, even organizing the office or whatever, but delaying my starting point because I know I will be fully immersed. And I kind of like, oh, I'm not going to be checking my phone, so I better check it now. So as much as the immersion keeps me hooked, that also makes me delay the start in a way that I don't like. As in Zbrush or Blender, I can have a casual start where I'm not fully focused and slowly getting into it. In VR, it's instant. The moment I put it on, I'm fully there. So both positive and negative, right? Because it comes with the benefit of the immersion, but it creates another downside, especially for people with ADHD. So I'm basically like a toddler. It's hard for me to get started, but it's way harder for me to stop. The constant updates drive me crazy. I hate meta. I can't wait for Steam Frame to come out. It's worse than Windows. Sometimes I use it on Friday, update. I go to use it again on Monday, update. And sometimes it requires a full Windows restart for you to be able to use this thing. So if you have multiple apps open and you're ready to go and there is like, oh, I gotta restart my computer and open everything again. And it's a whole thing, especially if you're on the meta side of things that I'm soon to not be. And the biggest negative for people getting started is most likely the things that you do at first are gonna look really bad. And if you're already a digital artist and you're used to the quality level that you're able to output on a daily basis on the normal type of software, and you make like very amateur looking stuff when you first do something in VR, it is a little bit discouraging. And it was like that for me at first, especially on the more voxel-oriented softwares. Everything looks a little melty, a little like made out of ice cream. But if you use the right tools on the right apps, not trying to replicate ZBrush, but actually using VR for what it is, it's gonna blow your mind. So let's get started on the apps that you should and should not use. The first VR sculpting app that I ever used is the same that most people do, Adobe Medium. At the time it was called Oculus Medium, but it got acquired by Adobe. And Adobe kind of abandoned it. It feels a bit like a toy because the weird noises they make looks like when you're sculpting, and the tools look a little silly, very colorful, you know. But it's actually capable of a lot, and it is free. The major downside is because like most VR sculpting apps, it is purely voxel based. It is very likely that you're gonna end up making things a little bit melty, a little bit too soft, almost made out of ice cream, like I said. When Adobe bought Medium, they kind of abandoned it. They never intended to keep developing it. They actually made a new VR tool called Adobe Modeler that looks and feels a lot more professional than Medium. But it comes with a very steep price tag. I don't think it's really worth it. That being said, they still have an open beta that anyone can sign up for and use it for free. So there is that, but I don't know for how long that's gonna be possible. And when sculpting, they have like an SDF thing that you can do that's kind of cool, but more on the desktop side, I would say. As far as VR sculpting goes, is very similar to Adobe Medium. It's like an evolution of it. It feels a lot better. People are capable of doing amazing things on this. I used a lot to start sculpts and then finish in ZBrush because it is still voxel based only, and it does have that melty feel to it because things just merge together in a very smooth way that it's not really what I'm looking for. So, but it is the main tool that I used for years. And I've tried Kodomo, but it was kind of glitchy for me. It wasn't really what I was looking for. Feels a lot like Zbrush in VR, but I don't know, there was something about it that I bought it, I used a little bit, and I kept going back to Adobe. I don't think I gave Kodomo a fair try because I was very excited about Adobe Substance Modeler at the time. And when I opened both, I decided to spend my time more on Modeler than on Kodomo. And I think that's also why I didn't try Shapelab for a long time, because it felt like another variation of Kodomo for me when it first came out. But my friend Chris Trupika kept telling me about, you should try Shapelab, you should try Shapelab, and I kind of ignored him until now. You see, I had a little bit of an artist block a couple weeks ago. I've been mostly working on longer projects that I go long periods of time doing other things other than sculpting. So I kind of lost my hand a little bit because my current long project only has 3 characters. So most of the time I'm animating and posing them, not really making characters. And I did some quick things for 3D printing here and there, but they didn't really feel like my work, if that makes sense. And when I finished some freelance that I was doing that was keeping me from working on my personal stuff, I decided to spend a couple weeks working on characters to get my moods back, to get my juices flowing again. And I hit a wall. I started in Adobe Substance Modeler, and I hated everything I did there. And then I actually jumped to Nomad Sculpt and Zbrush on the iPad, and I also didn't really like how things were looking there. In the case of Zbrush, wasn't the tool's fault, it was just me not being excited about the process. So I decided to listen to my friend and actually try Shapelab, and God, I'm glad I did. I think by far it's the best VR sculpting experience I ever had. There is still room for improvements, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of things that they're still working on it, but it is the best sculpting experience I ever had in VR. It does cost something, so it's not like Medium where you can just download for free and keep using it, but I think it's definitely worth it. You see, the main difference between Shapelab and Substance Modeler is purely voxel based, the thing that makes everything look a little bit melty. As on Shapelab, you can actually use geometry and subdivide or dynamesh it together like in Zbrush, and it does have voxel on it, but it's more like an afterthought. The voxel tools are actually not that great in comparison to Substance Modeler, but that's what it makes it good, because for my workflow, mashing primitives together and then dynameshing them, making them a single geo after, it works way better for me than having them kind of clumping together. So that's how I was doing things in Modeler to begin with, but with voxels, which is harder to control and harder to get a sharp edge on it. On this one, you can dynamesh things, and I keep saying dynamesh because I've been using Zbrush for way too long. It has its own name. You can remesh things. You can use voxels, and some people are getting amazing results, like final sculpts out of it. I'm not there yet, and I don't know if I want to be. The way I treat VR sculpting is almost like if you ever sculpted with monster clay in real life. Monster clay is a wax oil-based clay that it's really hard. And I usually buy the hardest one, but when you warm it up, it gets soft. So usually on the soft stage, I'm using my hands. I might make a little skeleton and out of wire, and I'm putting clumps and smoothing with my finger and maybe even like doing a pinch and things like that. But I'm not really using tools on it. I'm mostly using my hands and maybe a knife here and there. After that stage is done and the clay cools off, it gets really hard. And that's when you bring in the tools and start carving into. So it's an addition and manipulation process when the clay is soft, and when the clay is hard, it becomes an extraction, a carving process. So that's kind of how I'm dividing Zbrush and Shapelab. Shapelab is the equivalent of the soft clay stage for me. It's where I get the silhouette done, I get the proportions, I do the blocking, and I get it pretty far there. But when I start getting tools for details, that's when I like to change to ZBrush, and actually I think I benefit more from have pen to screen other than being inside the 3D environment with it. But that's me. It might be a little bit different for you. As far as sculpting and modeling, there is only two more that I want to mention. One being Gravity Sketch, and I actually really like it, but it's not really for me. It's more like a product design type of tool, so it's really good for concepts and iterations on products. You might use that for props and for maybe some environments even, but it's not really my style. And the other one is Freebird XR. I think everybody who has a VR headset and uses Blender should get Freebird XR, because right now it's the best way of using VR in Blender. It does have similar tools to Gravity Sketch where you can draw really well with it, with the benefit that you can use all the modifier stack and geometry nodes because, you know, like it's inside Blender. So there's a lot that can be done with Freebird XR, but I think it was developed with animation more in mind, so you can actually control a rig using Freebird XR, and that has been how I'm using that the most, and it is really good for that. I tried to do some sculpts with it, and I really liked it because got me out of my comfort zone because of the limited set of tools. It doesn't have sculpting on it, but what it has is the whole brush similar to Gravity Sketch, and so making sculpts only using that was kind of interesting, but I wouldn't recommend. And again, if you already got a VR headset, I'm in love with Quill. Too bad development has been stale on that one, but Quill VR is a 2D/3D animation tool. It feels like a 2D animation tool, but you're in VR, you're in 3 dimensions. And it might be the tool that I use the most since I got my VR headset. I haven't used it in a while because I always get frustrated for not having a symmetry, you know, a proper symmetry. You can duplicate, you can like draw half, duplicate, flip, and then you have both symmetries. But for me, symmetry in VR is essential so I don't get things a little bit too wonky, because unlike a 2D screen, it's hard for you to set a center line, you know? So for me, symmetry gives me a point of reference. Even if I don't use it for the entirety of the process, it keeps me grounded for the beginning stages. And so Quill kind of lost the appeal for me for now having that. And because it looks the same from when I used, 8 years ago to now, they changed nothing. If you just want to get a taste of it, I say go with Adobe Medium because it's free and you can just experiment with it a little bit, see if you like the feeling. If you actually want to do characters in VR, no questions about it. Shapelab is the best. Now, if you want to sculpt ZBrush style but hard surface, I think Adobe Substance Modeler is better than Shapelab for that right now. Look at what McNuggets does, it's insane. Now, if you want to sketch 3D props and do some product design, Gravity Sketch is great for that. And if you use Blender, Freebird XR is only $15. I think it's a no-brainer just to be able to manipulate rigs and even do some sketches there too. And you can have a really cool drawing experience there, similar to Quill, but able to use symmetry because it's Blender. When it comes to what device to get as a beginner, there's not many options out there right now. There is Meta with the Quest 3 and 3S. There is Pico has a few options, but I don't know many people who use it. And there's the one I'm waiting for, that's Steam Frame, but I don't even know the price. And the main reason I wanted that one is because it's not Meta. Right now I'm using an old Rift S, and there's no standalone option. You can only use hooked to a computer, but I don't think they sell that one anymore. So unfortunately, if I was starting right now and I needed a device right now, I would go with Meta and get the Quest either 3 or 3S. But you might be able to find a Rift S used for cheap, which is also Meta. Now, if you're gonna hook up to your computer, you probably need a fairly decent graphics card. Any gaming graphics card that's 6 years and younger will do pretty much. So for the ergonomics of it, when I first started using VR, I was using it standing, not because I was trying to be healthy or anything. It's just my mindset when it comes to VR was more about gaming. That was my first experience with VR, and for a lot of games, you want to be standing because you want to like shoot and duck and all that fun stuff. And even when you set up your VR, you set up a safe zone, right? So you set up you mark on your grounds how far can you walk, and the idea of walking around the model is also a little bit appealing. So basically, what I was doing was standing and sculpting up in mid-air, and I end up with shoulder pain, and behind the scapula as well. I was feeling some pain there after a long session, of course. So I remember that pain from when I used to do graffiti art, and it's a similar pose, right? Like I was the whole day holding a can and doing this type of motion, and I would get the same exact pain. So I was like, it took me a little bit to realize, a few weeks, and then after I realized, I started looking for better ways of doing it. The biggest improvement for me was finding a place to sit instead of hovering, and my computer chair just happened to have armrests, and if this armrest could go up even higher would be better, because I end up slouching a little bit to get my arms higher. But anyways, I put my elbows in here and I sculpt in front of me like this. Now my shoulder is not lifting my arm up the whole time. The only downside of this, because of the height of the armrest, is I end up sculpting down here. I end up looking down for most of the time, and I can't imagine that being good for my neck on long term. I haven't had any pain related to this yet, so can't confirm or deny. If I wasn't tethered to my computer by a cable, come on, Steam, release the frame. But if it wasn't for the cable, I think I would try with like a beanbag or something, like being super comfortable. There is a Quill user, I forgot who she was, but she mentioned that she lays in bed and sculpts in VR in bed for like 12 hours a day. So it's not the level of comfort I want. I want something in between. A beanbag, and we do have a beanbag, so a beanbag would be ideal for me, but I can actually try to throw the beanbag here, but I wanted the frame so I can put like on the living room, just sit on a beanbag, and that's it for today. Let me know if I missed something, and let me know how it goes if you decided to try it.